Good morning, Keller Williams. It's 8:30 and we have Monday Motivation here live. I'm Sally Hayes, your assistant team leader, and I feel like Kalani is joining me here, and hopefully we can test out this speaker. Last week I had an issue with my speaker and my settings, but Colt, our amazing tech trainer, helped me out with that. So good morning, you guys. We are still talking about the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, and we're really getting close to the end. And our section today is called Putting It All Together with Focus. So it takes us through what we've been learning and then talks about the focus part. And so the prescription for your business, if you are having trouble gaining perspective or you're having some limited thinking again, remember we talked about thinking in the beginning of the book, and time management, this is the section for you. And the good news is that once we are finished with the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which my goal is to be done by next Monday, then in the middle of May, we are going to start talking about the one thing, which is the focus book. And 2 or 3 years ago, probably more than that, but it seems like yesterday, I went to the Southeast region and they had a class called Business by the Book, and it paired the Millionaire Real Estate Agent with the one thing. It was really, really good. So if you ever see that anywhere in the universe, I highly suggest you take it because it blends the two together. Because this book was actually born out of this section that we're going to talk about, and also Quantum Leap, which is an amazing class I know some of you took recently. So let's dive in. What I really loved was the $64,000 question. And you guys, some of you might know that, let me see if I can admit, well, she went away. Adrienne was there and now I'm not been able to admit her. So the $64,000 question, a popular game show. And back in the day, it was talking about things that just don't happen to you, that if you focus on something, your world is going to expand. And I love this statement at the very beginning of this page. No horse gets anywhere until he is harnessed. Here's Adrienne. No horse gets anywhere until he is harnessed. And even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. Wow. Those are two really great quotes at the very beginning of this chapter. One is Will Rogers, and I just love that. And this is where the One Thing book got its wings from this section. No steam or gas ever drives anything till it's confined. And no Niagara is ever turned into light and power until it is tunneled. So it talks about the greatness comes from the harness, from the being confined, and from being tunneled, and that's that focus piece. So none of it matters unless you're focused on it. And those were by Harry Emerson Bosdick. And Gary said once he heard those statements, he couldn't get them out of his mind. It's true, Gary, right? He's amazing. So we only succeed by the power of narrowing our focus, and life doesn't just happen to you. It's because of the choices that you make. And business failure doesn't just happen. It's about the choices and the focus, but the hard part's maintaining focus. And I don't know if you, but I can raise my hand and say I'm testifying right now that that's not easy. First of all, it's not easy always to focus, and then to maintain it constantly in the same rhythm as a habit isn't easy a lot of times for agents. Didn't know how about Palani and Adrienne on the Zoom? Good morning. What did you guys think about putting it all together with focus? And how do you guys stay focused on what you have to do every day in your 20%, your big rocks?
Am I on?
Yes, you are. And can you hear me?
Yeah.
Win-win.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think time blocking for me is huge. And one of the things I heard in my Inspire group with James D. Shaw, he was talking about, because I'm in one of the neighborhoods for 25 units and under. And one of the things he said is our schedule should be very rigid. We should have our schedule very time block and stick to it. And especially in the mornings, if we get the hard things done first or the one thing done first, then we've already accomplished what we need to for the day.
That makes you feel good, doesn't it?
Well, and you wear out during the day. So do the hardest thing first that you have to get done.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The other day, since I've moved to Ottawa, there's a gym that's opening, and I don't think they're open yet, called Eat the Frog. I've never heard of the gym before, but I've heard of Eat the Frog, right? Do the things you don't really love doing first that you have to do, because we don't always love the focus lead gen part. Some people do, but most people don't want to do that. They want to live by default, right? What I love the story about the $64,000 question and the tenacity of the young woman determined to appear on the show. And she had a degree in psychology and was staying home with her first child while her husband pursued an internship. And this was in the 1950s. And they watched, I'm sorry, I'm doing allergies today. They watched the $64,000 question regularly, and eventually the woman decided, and I underlined that word, the woman decided to audition for the show. And though she had expertise in her field, one of the prerequisites of the show was to be an expert in your field. She was turned down because, it was TV, right? And she was a psychologist, but she was a stay-at-home mom, a homemaker. And they were like, that's not real sexy for TV, right? That's not very interesting. So they had this, they wanted to have a dramatic juxtapositions. So like a fisherman who was a mathematician, or a pilot who cataloged butterflies. So she was like, okay, I figured out what you guys are doing and what you're saying. So she was determined to make the show. And she decided to become a boxing expert. She thought, well, that'll get their attention, right? I'm a psychologist who stays at home, but I'm a boxing expert. So she started studying in earnest and checked out every book on boxing and started going to boxing matches. And so after a year, time on task over time, she sent in another application with her picture and listing her avocation as housewife, psychologist, and boxing expert. And that got her on the show. And guess what? She won $64,000. Okay. So she made up her mind they were not going to tell her no. She was determined. And then that made her a celebrity. And she spent the $64,000 on getting a doctorate degree in psychology and kickstart a tremendously successful career. And you may have heard of Dr. Joyce Brothers. Like, I'd never heard this story about her before in the past before this book. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was pretty interesting because she found a way to go over the obstacle, right, that they were setting in front of her. And she was purposeful and she wanted something. So it says that she proved that focus could ultimately manifest tomorrow's reality. If we focus on things today, our tomorrow shows up. And the book gives us 5 steps to do that. It says high achievement is not easy and can be simpler. It's just not going to be easy, right? We can make it simple, but we got to go through the process for that. Anybody can, but not everybody can. What did you guys think about that? Did you have any comments on this page talking about the 5-step plan for having focus? And why don't agents focus? Why doesn't everyone become a millionaire real estate agent?
I think when we set goals and you know what your goal is, your mind will figure out your subconscious how you're going to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And when we break our numbers down, how many transactions do you want for the year? What's your average in commissions to make what we want to make? We back out that number, then we know what we have to do every single day to hit that.
And that we don't always, though, do we? I mean, I'm saying everyone in the world, like some people know that and they don't hit it, or they do know it and they hit it, but they don't go past that. I like page 291. It's about the opportunity, and they a lot of times they'll hit a target, but then that's where they'll stop, or they'll aim too low. They'll aim too low, and they won't aim high. So I like this page talks about aiming high. And I love how you've said you can do it. You have your economic model. You can figure out where you're going and you can fix that goal. And that's part of what some don't do. This book sets you up to be able to do the processes and the steps. And thank you, Adrian, for adding that, because I believe that's true. If you determine the target you can hit, if you aim low, you'll probably only have the option of hitting a variety of low targets, and pull your aim higher, and you'll probably have the option of hitting a higher target. I love this. Just remember that when you aim low, only a stray bullet hits a high target. It's an accident. It's a stray bullet. It wasn't intentional or purposeful. So, the bigger you want your business to be, the narrower your focus will need to be on what matters. And in the end, the size of your business or staff isn't really your main concern. Your focus is. I think that we get focused on things that probably are not the most important. I'm saying they're not important at all, but we don't focus on what we should be doing. 5 simple steps to great focus in your life. 1 is create a personal plan and make process your focus. So Adrian, you mentioned creating that plan. You've got that plan created, and then your process is focusing on it. Time block to get your focus. Adrian mentioned that as well. Get accountability to keep your focus. Have someone check in on you. Make sure your environment supports your focus, and keep your energy to maintain your focus. That's the 5-step plan. And stop worrying about others. Like it says, don't worry about what's going on, what other people are doing. If they're winning or they did a transaction, why haven't you? I think you need to stop looking at what everybody else is doing and focusing on your process to get to the goals that you set in your economic model and your lead gen model. All right, create a personal plan and make focus the process. So on page 292, think and believe big. Man is what he believes. And it says big plan, big model, big goals. What comments do you have about that and about aiming high? On page 292. Adrian, I heard you say you made goals. You are doing personal growth. You are part of Inspire. By the way, I know James Shaw is a celebrity, okay, and everyone.
That's right.
Okay, and Julie Prescott tagged me in a post where he said, I'm going to go to 4 team meetings, 4 for the entire country, okay, and he's going to choose that. So I did fill out a form to put it in the bucket, okay. Let's hope we get James Shaw. It's by Zoom. And I know we can get 75 people in the room. That the limit, I mean, you have to have 75 people in the room for the Zoom. He wants to talk to us and engage with us. So I've got our name, you guys, in the
awesome.
So keep your fingers crossed. And I know he'll give us a lot of great information.
Well, I mean, I think if you've got to think, why not think big? You know, I think we have our goal for the year, but you have to have a stretch so that when you do hit your goal, you keep going and there's a motivation. And 2 things I've heard is that either you reward yourself when you hit the goal, but you can also, in the same light, if you don't hit your goal, what do you have to do that you don't like?
That's that pain versus pleasure, right? Because some people thrive on, I'm going to avoid the pain, and some like that goal or that treat. I think you do have to give yourself, some celebration for the small wins, especially when you look at it as the plan is the focus and the process is focus. And that's not always easy. It's just like working out, right? You focus on it over and over and over. There's comes some time where you get tired, and you have to give yourself, that's the energy plan that comes in too. You have to give yourself some rewards for following the thing, right? Because it said it's not easy, it's simple. It's like when you read the One Thing book and you go, really, right? Opening concept of the book, aiming high matters. Seeking mastery is a process and a path, not an event. So it is a path, the thing that you staying on the focus path. Knowing minimum income and letting that number be focused holds you back. So stop thinking of the minimum, aim high, like Adrian mentioned, because we don't want to stop. So 3 big rocks. You know what? I think if we had to win, if one of the models of this book had to win the best, like the one that's always mentioned over and over and over, it's got to be the 3 L's. The 3 L's, the triangle, you know, with leads, listings, leverage, is repeated over and over in the book. That means we need to pay attention to it, right? So your big rocks, when it talks about big rocks, When we think about big rocks, little rocks, and sand and water, if you had a jar, if you put water in first, and then you try to put sand in, and you consider the things you got to get done, big rocks, you can't fit them in your day. You filled it up with all the little things, right? And now there's no room for the big rocks. It's the same way with your calendar. The big rocks, if you put them in a container, y'all can try this at home if you want. You can put the big rocks in a container. You can fit the little rocks in. You can pour sand. The sand fills around the rocks. And guess what? Water seeps all the way down in through the whole thing. It all fits in the container. So think of that like your schedule. Big rocks are leads, the database-driven approach to focus on seller listing leads. It says seller listing leads, not just any leads, seller listing, right? How are you going to get listings today? Listings, get the number of seller listings you must get from your economic model, right? And leverage, recruit capacity talent with the emphasis on key 3 hires that we talked about previously. Those are your 3 big rocks. Try to get past the natural tendency to judge whether you can or can't do it, right? Because some of you already went there in your mind. Commit yourself to pursuit of excellence. That's your path. The process of implementing and growing into big models. That's what your focus is. I love that it gives you the simple things. And try, TRY, the real you. That's what TRY stands for on page 294. We love acronyms in real estate. It says, I wasn't trying to be cute, but just instructive. View the word try as an acronym for the real you. Through the years of teaching, we know for a fact that most people will never know who they really are or what they really achieve because they fear to try. So find the real you by busting out that fear of what you think you can or can't do. The real you will show up when you try. Don't be left high and dry. Just aim high and try, right? So time blocking for focus just means you're going to be purposeful and know what your calendar is for the week and know what you have to get done, right? I like what it says that we're looking at business versus busyness, because sometimes it feels like we've accomplished things, but we've just done a lot of stuff, but it's not the most important things that we were supposed to do. A lot of agents have their time is not focused. They're not clear about models. They're not clear about activities, and they're not focused on priorities. They're just not clear, and they get busyness. They're just doing things. I love how it says on time block for focus, if everyone has the same amount of time, then success at a high level isn't about how much time you have, but how you use that time. And that's just the difference between someone who's making money in real estate and some that aren't, is it could just be that needed to be focused on, they're not clear about their models and what they're supposed to be doing. So this is a great chapter to reset yourself. I think that to do and have to list is a big deal too. What did you guys think about that? Your have to and your to-do list.
I again think you have to time block and do your one thing, whatever that is, do it in the morning. That's why I do my care calls. Because once I do my calls, I've reached all the people I'm supposed to reach in theory.
Okay, well, and that's showing up for you when you're doing that on a daily basis. I know I talk to you quite a lot, and you are so good about looking back and being real with yourself, and you know what you need to do. And I love that you're learning based, and you're great at time blocking as well. And so I think that that's a really great example. If anyone's watching this and they want to know what about time blocking, I've seen Adrian and also Colin Rogers is really good at it and looking and working to follow it. Now, following it's a whole nother thing, right? Doing it and seeing it and following it are part of the process that you don't master that overnight, because we get out there and we get into busyness, right? Fires happen. And then we get into saying yes to things that we should say no to. I mean, I'm saying that for myself. That's what happens. But it is a path and not just an event. Right? And you are, I love that you do that. I wrote down here, eat broccoli first, right? Because it says, when you give every activity equal importance, prioritization happens only when deadlines and problems force you to react to them. And let's face it, the stuff that matters most isn't always the most fun. True story. The leads people who work off to-do list act like children picking at their food. They start with the favorites and save the veggies for last. Isn't that true? So by the time they get to their business vegetables, read in tasks that would have been easier or most effective if done earlier, like you said, Adrian, do them first.
Yeah.
And then your vegetables are cold and hard to get down, and you might be full and you're like, oh, I don't want to do that now because I'm so tired. I'm tired, worn out. There's no room, there's no energy for more. So high achievers are sensible enough to prioritize activities according to their ability to make the business grow, and they time block their calendars to ensure they're going to get them done. They eat their veggies first, right? While they're steamed, while they're fresh, they get them down, they just get it done and move all the rest of the things. So they do that well. And that's just a budget of time. So remember, you have a have to list, and that's your leads listings, right? Those are how many contacting people, lead generation, and you have a to-do list. So do your have to before your to-do, for sure. And that time blocking.
I think it's important when we're doing that, you let people know what you're doing. You prepare. So if you've got your listings or your buyers, you let them know, hey, this is my time where I reach out to people. I'm trying to find, if you've got a listing, I'm trying to find buyers for you. The buyers, I'm trying to find houses for you, and let them know that time is blocked and purposeful. And there's very few emergencies in real estate. So you can let them know, hey, I will call you back, but it's going to be after this time. This time's already, I'll be in meetings or whatever you say to them.
I love that, because they have to know, first of all, they'll respect how you do things differently. You know, when you approach it that way, you know, most agents just, they're in busyness, not business, but I'm a business owner and I'm always looking for buyers and sellers. So I have this time that this is what I do every day to ensure that if there's somebody out there for your property, then I'm going to run across it by asking other people that I know who they know. So just so you know, if we're in negotiations, I'm going to, reach out if there's truly an emergency. But I like how you said there's very rarely an emergency, right? And this is the time that I'm working, looking for business, because that's what they want you to do. Mm-hmm. Many times I've talked to expireds that told me the agent before, didn't show their house. They other people showed, but they didn't show it. Well, that's a lack of understanding of how business works, first of all, and not that listing agent not telling them how it works. And also not educating them on what they do every day. So I love that. And the focus, your time blocking is your top 20%. So when you focus, I've heard Gary say, when you calendar, put your vacation in first, right? God, family, business for the year, right? Because I know we're just in May, happy May. And it's not too early to be thinking about what's going to happen in 2024, because we traditionally start working on that the last minute in the fall, right? When you really should already be thinking about what quarter you're in. Because if you're 90 days out, you're already, your business is already your third quarter working right now. Yikes. Right. This is May, but what you do every day is working on later. So you got to focus on it to set yourself up for the end of the year. And you already need to be thinking about the strategies around that and the 20%. And first of all, your time off and how much you plan on working first, God, family, business, and then the 20%. So get accountability to keep your focus. This quote says, I've always learned from others. Alan Dahm taught me to focus my market and make better use of my time. So others can also help you with accountability for long-term and short-term focus, to go over those goals, say where you are, how's it going, what are you doing well, how are you winning, where are your gaps, what's going on right now, how do you reset that? Because you know what, when planes fly, the dashboard for the pilot is a reminder of how he's moving and adjusting, because planes don't fly in a straight line all the time. They get off course a little bit, and those instruments keep them on course. So some things you will be lead measures, your windshield view, which are the listings you're going to get, right? And your lag measures are things you've already done, which is nice to keep up with. But in the end of the day, you don't need to live in the past, right? You've already closed the deal. The transaction's closed. Look and focus on what's your windshield view of that airplane and keep it on track with accountability and systems, right? For refocus in the process, for sure. So Making sure your environment supports your goals. That is just around you. Like you could have a physical environment, which does your physical environment condition you to talk to everyone all the time instead of getting your stuff done? Hi, my name is Sally. Anyway, how do you bunker yourself? The one thing book's going to talk more in depth about that. Does your environment of people support your goals? Is it encouraging? Is it supportive? There's an analogy in the book, which I have heard before because, I've helped hundreds of people get into real estate, and I've talked to a lot of business owners where the person is like, I'm over here doing this in my world, and I've decided to do real estate. And my family says, well, that's okay, as long as you don't let any balls fall over here, right? If you can keep dinner on the table, house cleaned, everybody picked up, all the things like you're doing right now, and you can do that, thumbs up. But there's not that environmental support for them to start a business, right? So sometimes you're dealing with actual physical environment that you might need to change to focus, or it might be environment of who you're hanging out, naysayers, negative Nellies. Think about that. That's your environment of keeping you from production. So don't be negative, and then you are the energy that you bring to your space, right? So think about the environment supporting you and getting your production done for sure. Any comments as we move out of this? We are going to start next week. We're going to talk about maintaining your energy and staying motivated and, being tired, all of those things in that plan. And then we're going to talk about the role models that were used for this book, as well as in the very back of the book, there are some sample reports and things like that. Basically, there's a chart of accounts. So we'll be finished once we go complete that with this journey of the Millionaire Real Estate Agent. And I love how he ends it with energy. So what are your thoughts as we wrap up, as we've gone through this book, Adrian? Has there been anything through the process that's helped you with your business and your mindset? I can't hear you. I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't.
Okay.
I don't think there's one thing out of the book. There are so many things. So each time I read a paragraph or a portion, or we are on this call together, there's always things I'm learning. But I will say that I think when you know your numbers, you know your focus, you know what you have to do, you time block, you guard that time, then you can achieve your numbers. And putting in, like you said, bunkers or things around yourself. If you can't work at home, go to the office. If the office is distracting, work at home, whatever the case may be, and teach your family and friends, this is my guarded time. I will call you back. And when those things come, you've got to redivert and be like, stay on track. So, and also if you've got, I think an emergency, it's not so much of an emergency, but when you do have listings and buyers, not so much the buyers, unless you're under contract, that does come first. So I do stop what I'm doing if it's a listing and it's something that needs to be dealt with because of trying to get under contract or meeting deadlines. Those are definitely priority.
Well, I love that. I love your shirt, your KW shirt. I just noticed that. And one thing, if you would like a bunker, there is a bunker in the office, and I've gone to it several times, that productivity phone booth out there. People know when you're in there that I believe they were like, okay, they're really trying to focus. Now people will wave at you as they go by, but it's a nice place to just go, I'm going to step in, I'm going to get my things done. Right. So I love all of that. And I appreciate you being on this very consistently. I told Jay at the office that I wish I had at the beginning started saying, hey, if you're here every single time, you get a certificate. And I feel like there have been several that are here most of the time, and I still do that, even though, because I think that you're MREA certified, right? Because you've gone through the book, and I appreciate that. So guys, stay tuned. Let's wrap it up next week. Please hop on if you have something to contribute, or post it down on the chat for everybody to see. And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a fantastic Monday.
Thank you. You too.
Bye, Adrian.